Call the Planning Commission meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on a certified survey map at 1228 10th Street submitted by Creative Homes, Inc.
Pretty simple CSM. Staff notified neighboring property owners within 200 feet as prescribed by the subdivision regulations. Have not received any written comment. Effectively takes just shy of 1 acre current lot with one home on it and an ancillary structure, accessory structure, and then splits it into two. For lot 1 would be the existing house that would access or does access off of 10th Street. And then lot 2 would be created and would have a new home built on it and would access 11th Street. Staff recommends approval.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on final development plans for a Neo Electrical Facility at 2180 Jack Road Drive, Neo Electrical Solutions.
Concept development plans were presented at the April 24th, 2018 meeting. Since that time, the applicant has made the necessary changes as recommended by staff and our consulting engineer. Includes approximately 13,792 square foot building. Also shows some additional expansion space in the future. Staff recommends approval.
Everything's been met as far as your comments,
Yep.
so I'll move to approve.
With the conditions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on concept development plans for Popeye's Restaurant at 2211 Badger Drive, Hudson Chicken LLC.
Hudson Chicken has submitted concept development plans for a fast food restaurant facility to be located in a location immediately to the east of the Five Guys and Panera Bread building. In your packets, you'll see some staff comments that were addressed by the applicant who's in the audience tonight in terms of the colored building elevations, printing off a little different than the actual, what the building looks like. These drive-through businesses are regulated via a conditional use permit, so that will be forthcoming as well. Again, this is a unique development that's a commercial condo entity that sells off building pads, and then you purchase rights to develop the parking. So staff recommends approval with the conditions listed in the report.
What was the color building elevations do not reflect what is being proposed on the site plan?
They just printed off a lot brighter than,
Okay.
you know, I think it was a little
So
shocking
it's not
at
going to be
first.
that orangey?
Yeah, I mean, it'll look more like the sample photo. I mean, it's close. And we got some revised ones, I think. They were just sent, yeah. Yep.
And what was your comment about the, I'm sorry, about the parking?
So it's unique in that a purchaser buys the lot, and then you purchase rights to develop parking that's in accordance with their master development plan for that whole subdivision.
But that's not a part of what we're approving tonight.
Oh, it is, and
Oh,
it
okay.
meets our, it meets
It
all the
meets
parking
our-
requirements.
okay.
And, yep.
So is there an implication then for common shared parking between buildings? Is that what that's saying, or what is it saying?
In some instances, yes, and this specific lot, no. So the neighboring, there'll be one lot between the Popeye's Chicken and then the Tumble Fresh Laundromat that was
Laundry's
approved.
next door, yep.
So in between there's contemplated a retail building that would have more than one tenant in it, like the Five Guys and Panera building. And that would have a larger shared parking facility.
I'll move we approve with conditions.
Second?
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment from R1 one-family residential to RM1 multiple family, and a comprehensive plan amendment from 1 and 2 family residential to medium density residential at St. Croix tax parcel 236-1293-02Z-025 Lois Cornwell Trust.
The purchaser or the potential purchaser of this property is requesting through the current owner a rezoning to a multiple family zoning designation, as well as an amendment to the comprehensive plan from 1 and 2 family residential to medium density residential. This is simply setting a public hearing date, or requesting that the council set a public hearing date. And the applicants in the, I believe, in the audience.
Yeah, thank you.
In your packets also is the narrative. This is their future use, is what they're looking at is condo units in the specific space. So,
Yeah.
Rentals, condos?
Yeah, they would be,
state your name and your address.
oh yeah, Matt Hafler with Hafe Architects, 175 2nd Street South. Yeah, what the overall idea is to have the site rezoned to be the RM1 category versus the single family, which would allow for 27 condo units on the site. The decision between condos and apartments isn't 100% for sure in either direction, but it's kind of leaning more towards for sale units. We basically looked at this with the owner a while ago in terms of the overall site and the location of it with its proximity to the downtown. And so what we looked at is kind of 3 major points. Currently the site is zoned single family. The site is about 120,000 square feet, so it's a rather large site for a single family home within the city limits here, especially with its proximity to the downtown. For what the future development is in Hudson and what the statistics are saying for more urban housing is suggesting that there will be a much higher need in the future for more higher densities closer to downtown areas. You know, for the first time in 50 years, people are moving back into cities and urban areas than they have since prior to that. And so we feel that this site, with its location to downtown, with it being on a more heavily traveled street, and having its walkability, we believe that the RM1 category is a good fit for the site. That would allow for up to 27 units on the site. Roughly the units would range from 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. We would take care of all of the required parking, most of the required parking underneath the building, and just requiring another 14 additional stalls, surface lot stalls in the front of the building. So as far as parking goes, we have a really low impact on parking. Most owners, if we go with the 27 units, would get 2 parking stalls that are covered, which would be a nice added benefit there. We're using basically the contours of the land and the setbacks from the site to establish where the building footprint can go. The building ends up being about 100 feet off of the curb line, and so in that case, with landscaping and the way that the site is, it ends up kind of blending in to the back kind of surrounding area. Our building height would meet the requirement of 35 feet average grade. And so even at that level, we're still about 35 feet lower than the adjacent residential structures that are up higher on the hill, or 40 feet higher, sorry. overall, for the RM1 building description or zoning, we would meet all of the requirements and wouldn't require any variance besides the parking. And our added housing for that area, we think, will be a large benefit to a lot of new development that may be coming into Hudson. So that overall big picture is kind of what we're looking at for this particular site.
Is your request for rezoning part of the purchase offer, that if it doesn't get rezoned, you will then back away from this?
Yeah, the owner has a purchase agreement in place right now, contingent upon rezoning of the lot.
And it's for sale as residential currently, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, tonight, this is just discussing setting the public hearing date, or requesting that the council set a public hearing date.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not interested in changing the rezoning. I think it's just the wrong place for that multiple housing. I'd rather see a single house there.
As would I, being at the entrance of Burkmoos Park. That street has its bottles down at the Dairy Queen and up at the top of the hill, and I don't think there would be a lot of traffic in and out of here based on your description here, but it's just a bad spot. And would it ruin the aesthetics of the area? I would rather see a single family. That's why I asked the question. I'd rather see a single family go in there. House, even if it's a big lot, that'd be my preference. I mean, to give my opinion.
Sure. And I think that discussion would take place, obviously, at the future date. I mean, we are just talking about setting a public hearing date.
Okay.
And the applicant has a right to a process too.
Right.
So
what do we need to
But
do?
we're not required to set a public hearing.
you can recommend that they do not set a public hearing date.
Yeah. And I would move to do that under what both I just said and he said.
Is that, you can do that?
That's a motion.
I understand that, but I said, can you do it?
I don't see why we couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the council has to make the final decision whether or not they want to set a public hearing date or not. And at that point, I would defer to Attorney McKittrick for her advice.
So what are you saying?
So the reality is you're making a recommendation to the council, and the council,
rezone it.
yep, will take, well, not to set a public hearing
Right.
date. So the council will have to take action on the recommendation as provided by Plan
Right.
Commission.
Okay.
And if the city attorney says no, they have a right to have a public hearing,
You're
we'll
overruled.
need to have that discussion at council.
Okay. My motion stands.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second? Motion fails for lack of a second. You have another motion?
I guess I'm gonna say they are owed the right of due process, the right of more eyes maybe coming upon this thing than just ourselves. We can let it be known how we feel, and I don't change my feeling. However, to deny them the process, I think we'd be overruled anyway. That's my personal opinion. So with that being said, I don't know what you need from me, a motion to have a public hearing. I am making that motion.
For June 18th. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for a public hearing. And so, Mike, just so I understand this, before we vote, public hearing, after the public hearing, it comes back here?
No, the Plan Commission would actually make a recommendation. Remember, the public hearings for rezonings are at council, not at Plan Commission. So we would make a recommendation to the council prior to them holding a public hearing, prior to the council holding a public hearing. So you'll have a recommendation that'll be made to the council based on their
So
petition.
before we set the public hearing, we're going to review this again and make a recommendation, or are we going to do that tonight?
No, you'll review it. We haven't approved either the rezoning or the comprehensive plan amendment. So the plan commission will look at it again prior to the common council holding a public hearing and make a recommendation on the actual application itself.
Okay. So I take it this will be on our next agenda
Correct.
here at the planning commission.
Correct.
Okay. Everybody good? Everybody good? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Motion's approved. Thank you.
Yeah.
Discussion and possible action on an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Oh, I'm sorry. Recommending the common council set a public hearing. That's the second one, right?
Yep.
Are we on E right now?
You are on E, correct?
Discussion and possible action on recommending the, we have to recess? Just lost everybody. Discussion and possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment from R1, one-family residential, to R2, two-family residential at 1308 2nd Street, Braveview Homes LLC.
The applicant has a purchase agreement with the current owner on the property. I think it was a foreclosure of some sort. Whereas this property was in the past utilized as a two-family home or a duplex up until approximately less than 6 months ago. The new owner obviously wants to purchase it and continue that use. However, it is zoned as R1, single family. So they're requesting a rezoning, which would be consistent with the comprehensive plan to maintain that use and actually be compliant with the R2 zoning district.
Are there any issues
I couldn't-
with the existing building?
Not that I'm aware of, but there may be. I shouldn't say that.
I couldn't figure, where is it on here?
I couldn't tell either.
It's,
Yeah, nor I.
I mean, usually they circle something or.
yeah, it was in color.
Yeah, they
So
put an
it's-
X or something.
Is it a squared in the? is it
Yeah, it's that
this?
squared in one. There's 3 cars parked behind it off the alleyway.
Oh, okay, I see it.
So it's this structure or this area?
When a property changes hands like that, and this guy's obviously trying to be right and bring it into proper zoning and all that, you know, and he does any changes to it, he has to bring it up to code? Because obviously it's an older house, obviously it's been altered to become a duplex, if you will.
Yeah.
And however, you know, is it done in such a way that's right, proper, and all that? I mean, with the changing of ownership process, does this come into play?
If they pull a building permit, which is what we anticipate, yes, that will have to be done to code and have it be brought up to code for the work that's done in there.
Have the neighbors been notified of this, noting that there's a change and it could affect their property values? I'd be curious on knowing
The
that.
neighbors, once the public hearing date would be set, we would notify the neighbors within 300 feet of the public hearing date and time.
I'll move for approval because the guy's playing ball and trying to get it done right, and with what I've heard, I think, let's hear what he says, or what happens. It's been in that function for a while now, so.
So we got a motion. Is there a second? Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on an amendment to the comprehensive plan to adopt the Hudson waterfront vision study.
We talked about this briefly a few meetings ago. I wanted to bring it to Plan Commission for a recommendation to include the recently completed waterfront vision study into the comprehensive plan. It does a number of things. Mostly it forces us to make sure that this plan doesn't sit on the shelf.
27.
And it also shows that our community is supportive of these types of initiatives on our riverfront And it would help our case for any grant programs that might be available to do some of the projects listed. Obviously, we couldn't do everything all at once. There's a lot of stuff here, but I think everybody did a great job with this. It was an exciting thing to work on with the mayor and the rest of the committee and Pat and the rest of the staff. So. I recommend that the Plan Commission recommend that the council incorporate it into the comprehensive plan as an appendix.
I will so move.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second, Mary Claire?
Is there any type of implementation plan or how this might be staged or how we'll move forward with it?
So the Park Board and the Plan Commission, this group, obviously will look to.
I know, but I mean, it doesn't. I mean, are there timelines on that? What's
No.
next in terms of?
No, we haven't decided what's going to, excuse me.
No, you're good.
We haven't decided any order what's going to be next. We're still exploring a few different things. And it's going to come down to grants that might be available. We've been told that there are plenty of grants for different types of projects that might be available down there. Interest in different things. We had a conversation last night at the council meeting, perhaps trying to bring in different rental type things over at the beach with Giggle Factory. Take a look at canoes, paddle boards, kayaks, that type of thing, which would be, again, an enhancement. It's pretty simple, but it could start with that. We've got to relook at a sailing club, could involve that. I have personally been talking about what I like to call a boardwalk along the seawall there, the river wall, and then of course we have dike projects. So it really depends upon people's appetite for what would come first, cost, as well as what money might be available for the different types of projects.
I like the idea of not doing the piecemeal, but being part of a plan.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah.
So is the committee that helped do this great work going to lead the charge then and then continue to move it forward?
As far as I understand, yes. And I don't, Mr. Mayor, I've been under the impression that we're going to continue to move forward with it as part of the value added that the engineering firm brought, or their specialists brought to doing the project, was their ability to access grant money and their knowledge of that. And I don't want to say they committed to it, but they were speaking to the fact that just about most of the projects that they recommended doing in one way or another fit some kind of a grant program that was out there that could help in that, and that their expertise there was going to outweigh the fees that we paid to have them do the study.
That's right. They thought that they'd be able to easily recoup their fees with the amount of money that we.
So they're part of the grant writing process for us, or they'll show us, or however that works.
They will help identify. I don't know about actually writing, but
They could, it could, or any community organization that wants to help forward these initiatives, I think.
Well, right, but what I meant by that is they'll at least be a coach or a mentor or something.
We're not
they'll
going to
stay involved as long as we want them involved.
Yep.
One thing that I would point out, you may have caught over the past week, is that one of the probably the easiest thing that could be done, and emblematic of what can be done in the future, is the planting of the trees behind the band shell to try to block that light that comes through there. And we had talked about that as one of the options of what to do with that. That came up right away. So that has already been implemented. It's already started. So.
No, I think it's an exciting plan. I think, as you said, the challenge with sometimes these plans is you have to have someone who's going to champion it and who's going to continue to help move it forward so it just doesn't sit on the shelf, because, this is
and also
prime property to really do something
our funding
with.
mechanisms the way they are, it has to be in our plan in order to proceed and go forward.
Correct.
So it's try to include everything that could ever go in the stew is in there, so that in the future, if funding becomes available, well, it's at least in our master plan, and we can go for it.
I think, Mr. Mayor, somebody's volunteering to kind of spear
What I like is I like the idea of having a vision with it that encompasses the whole area, and we don't end up over time dropping pieces in there that don't fit
Yeah.
with a plan.
Well, obviously, the implementation of this is going to take
Years.
yeah, exactly. And so anything can happen at any time, which I think is a good reason why Mike has thought it's important that we get this into the comprehensive plan. You talk about champions for this and making sure there's continuity for implementation. I think it's important that we do have that here, so we go on record as Plan Commission as a whole for the implementation of this. And you know, the more fingers we can get involved in this, fingerprints.
And there may be individuals and corporations that might be willing to, you know, put some money forth too in terms of something
Sure.
that gives them a little
You're
potential
probably talking
publicity
like
too.
Mayo
I mean,
partners.
I mean, there's a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of
All making it a
opportunities.
healthier community for everyone.
Right, but I mean, I'm just saying that could be a potential funding mechanism, you know, that could be looked at.
What I like
Oh, I
about
think you're right.
what I like about it is I think that there's a bunch of our lakefront right now that is marginally usable. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It's rocky. It's stuff, and this will clean up and make a bunch of that frontage usable and attractive, functional, where now it is not, in my opinion.
And I agree with you, and I think when you look at it from the river,
It looks nice.
would look nice to have it part of a plan
Yeah.
like this.
And the other piece too is it does a better job of making the connection to downtown
Right.
too. You know, by taking some of those treatments in the street and bringing the, you know, bringing people, you know, to the park. So
Motion to approve?
Second.
did we already have?
Thought we
We already
I was
have.
going to ask who seconded.
Pat and I did it.
Oh,
Pat
sorry.
seconded? Okay.
Call for the question.
Way to hop in there, though. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Discussion and possible action on a resolution calling for a public hearing on proposed tax incremental district number 6 creation in the city of Hudson.
In keeping with the riverfront and vision plan too, and talking about ways in which we can potentially help finance some of these projects, I mean, in addition to a number of other ones, including when in 2021, when the reconstruction of 2nd Street occurs, is the establishment of a TIF district where the city can capture some increment to help offset those those costs and not have to bond for those. It's recommended in the Planning District 1 chapter. In your staff report, I included those 5 bullet points that talks about creating incentives for different things, especially parking, and design quality features. So what we're looking at is requesting that the clerk set a public hearing date for the Planning Commission to establish what would be a mixed-use tax increment district 6. So it would be our 6th district in the history of Hudson. It would be different in the dog track one that was done last summer, and that one was considered a blight elimination district. I think we'd be hard pressed to call our downtown blighted. It allows for incentivization of both commercial and residential development. So a project plan has not been developed yet. This would be the first step in that process.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Unfinished business. I don't have anything. Anybody got anything for future agendas?
We just have the signage that we tabled at the last meeting until we could have a time frame to discuss it. So we just want to keep that for future discussion. We don't want to lose track of that.
Okay.
Actually, I think, will you make sure you have a parking on for, the parking committee has been meeting, so we have some proposals we need. I don't know if we will be ready for the next meeting.
We'll be close, I think, in working with Chief. We just need to get the enforcement technology folks in to explain.
We've narrowed it down to 2 services. So.
Good. Excellent. Anything else? Motion?
To adjourn, so moved.
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned.
I apologize for being late.